Hello and welcome to Emergence, Leading from the Field. My name is Artemis Evangelidi and I am your host. This podcast shines a light on courageous leaders from around the world, leaders who are shaping the future in bold and inspiring ways. Moving beyond the boardroom, we feature authentic conversations with guests, the change makers, the visionaries, and the innovators who are leading from experience, purpose, and heart, from the field where transformation takes place. These are conversations with people who are listening deeply, acting boldly, and are doing their part to shape a more conscious and connected world. Our conversations will offer a rare glimpse into how our guests have overcome challenges, whilst spearheading innovations that have enabled them to lead from the front lines. Be inspired as our guests share their journeys. Today, I am absolutely delighted to welcome Jayne Clarke to the podcast. Jayne is the CEO and founder of the Australian registered charity Imagine Re-Evolution, a charity that helps disengaged and disempowered youth regain their spark through a variety of ways, which we will talk about shortly, of course. But before I go there, Jayne's bio is so wonderful and so unique that I actually want to read it out for you all in its entirety. So it actually starts with love and connection is the antidote. In a seemingly divided world, love and connection serve as the remedy. Numerous individuals grapple with feelings of disconnection, whether in leadership, workplaces, communities, or within themselves. It acknowledges the fragmented state of our society without falling into despair. Rather, it emphasizes that love is not simply gentle, but also transformative. Whether leading discussions in a corporate environment or nurturing community through Imagine Re-Evolution, Jayne Clarke consistently works to help people reconnect with each other and with their authentic selves. This approach has become synonymous with bridging divides and fostering genuine human connection. And I just absolutely love that. And I wanted to share it with all of our listeners. Jayne, hello, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure. So I'd really love for us to open and uh, I guess for you to take our listeners through a little bit of your journey. So, your work is so deeply rooted in love and connection, and values we often talk about, but rarely are they put into practice, right? Like, how do we operationalize these values? So, what were the experiences in your own life that awakened you to the urgency of this mission to put love and connection into practice?
Thanks, Hut. It's something that we live and breathe, as you said. And I think that lack of connection and just listening in community itself to the rhetoric of the bloody kids or the stupid boomers and all of that hate and just disconnect. We're all guilty of it. We all come home at night and we shut our door and we kind of just channel. We're all exhausted. We've been on all day and we've just got to be. But I think there has to be more. There has to be more within a community. And I think witnessing that and watching that happen, I couldn't stand back and just say, oh, that's someone else's problem. I think it just had to come to life. And so I'm really fortunate. I'm very privileged that I am surrounded by love. I see it in everything. I see it in everyone that I encounter. And so bringing that love into a community where we can join together and share that, I think it's really important. And I suppose that's where Imagine was born. And it came to life and it's amazing, but there has to be more than just Imagine. So we've got these beautiful kids and we're working with them and we've got these beautiful volunteers that we're working with. And it kind of, you can see it. You walk into the space and you can just feel love. And there's no judgment or expectation or anything that comes with that apart from that connection, so that people aren't just sitting at home thinking that they're alone and that they've got nothing else in their lives, that they've got something, some sense of purpose. And I think that's where it kind of all came from. And then it's kind of building from there. starting a movement.
It's amazing. And we know that, connection is so important, not only for our mental well-being, but also for our physical health. And the research shows us that, connection and loneliness are actually very, very serious indicators of, reduced function and reduced well-being. But before we go into that, because I really want to do a bit of a deep dive into how these things are playing out, imagine, you weren't always the CEO of a registered charity, right? You've had a very different path. So I guess, how did your pathway and your leadership path lead you into where you are today, and basically shape how you're showing up today with what you're doing?
Yeah. So you're right. Like I went through school not thinking I was good enough for anything or anyone kind of thing. Like I had friends and that was all great, but academically I could have been a lot better. And that expectation of having to be more and, always, and that happens to every kid that goes through, but that disconnection. And now I realize that's just because my brain operates a little differently, but that's okay. But when you're young, you don't see that. But I also had sporting connections and I had a whole lot of different connections from there. I then started in disability studies and thought that was going to be where that life of service was going to kick in. But I wasn't emotionally equipped for that. So I went to something very related and started an accounting degree. And I worked as an accountant for 25 years. and now a recovering accountant, as we say, you know that. And so, but that gave me so much power and people leadership, and it developed those skills, and it honed into the fact that, okay, whatever work I was going to do, people were going to be at the center of it. It didn't have to be in a corporate setting, and corporate setting and I probably are not conducive because I'm a bit of a free spirit. So being in that corporate setting is probably not always going to work for me. And then I had an IVF journey as well, which was amazing, but God, was it stressful. And I've got a beautiful 14-year-old now who's phenomenal, but that journey of being at my most vulnerable, and realizing my mortality, firstly, and my failings as all those things that come to your head, like, I really want to be a mother, but I can't be a mother because it's not happening, and all of those things. And it became an obsession for me. And I, by the end of it, after 15 rounds of IVF, had a massive kind of emotional breakdown, which was going to happen because of where I'd been. And so then that realization of, yeah, okay, I'm a mum now, and that's wonderful, but I need more, and I want to be a good person and share that love. And those experiences, and I don't talk about my IVF journey for pity. I don't look at that for that, but there's somebody else that's going through this somewhere along the line that needs that connection again to be able to talk about it and to know that they're not alone. And so I shared my story and started doing that. I worked in material aid. I knew that I wanted a service kind of space. And so I started working at Vinnie's and I did some shop stuff, and that wasn't enough because it wasn't frontline enough for me. So then I did some material aid work, and then I saw the gaps of the same people asking for the material aid over and over again. And not that there's anything wrong with that. There's no judgment. But what can we do to disrupt that? What do we do as a community? What are we doing as a group of individuals coming together to disrupt that? And so that was then I embarked on a massive journey of self-discovery. So I spent a lot of time and a lot of effort on myself and continue to do that. It's not something that ever goes away. But I had to understand who I was first before I could bring this to light. And there was lots of fear and there was lots of self-doubt. And that was years of conditioning of that, oh, I don't know if I could do this. And who do I think I am that I could do this? But actually, I'm the right person for it. So there.
That's just so wonderful. And I love that you can, look back on this and reflect on this with a sense of humor as well. You mentioned something quite important, and I'd love to kind of draw you back to it. You said the word vulnerability. And, I absolutely love that word, but I love that word for the promise that it holds. And when we're able to be vulnerable in safe spaces and in safe settings where we can be seen and we can be heard, it can actually be extremely transformative. So I guess you showcasing and sharing your own vulnerabilities with people, how does that show up in? Because I know, with Imagine, you're doing a lot of work with youth and adolescents and supporting them to, uh, be themselves. And perhaps you can share with our listeners a little bit about that journey of how people, the youth are kind of welcomed into Imagine to be themselves. They're accepted as they are, and it's a strengths based approach. But then I know that you're also, you've embarked on doing some coaching work and some supporting work for women who are looking to, again, reconnect with their authenticity. So vulnerability, how do you hold space for the youth to be vulnerable, and how are you holding space for women to be vulnerable when they're coming and they're in your circle of influence, let's say?
Yeah, and I think it has to start with me. So I am vulnerable. And so not every day is sunshine and lollipops. We know that. There are days where you can't get out of bed. We all have them. There are days where everything seems to be an effort, but I own it. And so I actually will turn around to the young people in the space and say, you know what, I get where you're coming from today because I've just had a week and I get. And so some people might think, oh, she's sharing, here she goes, she's sharing her story again. But actually, it's not about ego. It's not about me going, poor me again. It's about making that safe space, creating that safe space to be vulnerable. And so if I can prove that I am vulnerable, then it creates that energy in the space. And meeting people where they're at. I think it's really important to meet people where they're at. And that's what we do at Imagine. It's what I'm doing in my coaching space as well. Everybody comes with a story. Everybody has it. We all have a story. Holding space for that story is really important. And knowing that people can share as much or as little, they can do as much or as little as they'd like in the space. They can sit down on the couches and do a puzzle. But the fact that they turned up and they're there is the thing that we celebrate. We don't celebrate the outcome as much. We celebrate the turning up, just the being, just the doing in that moment. And we all talk about presence and what that looks like. And it's very easy to get caught up in our heads and, stress about, oh, but what if and what, and no, by no means am I the expert in this space because I do it myself. I wake up and I go, oh my gosh, what if I don't do this? And what if this happens? So, there's all of those things. But knowing that there's a human side and sharing that human side, and that's how we hold the space. So being able to answer your question, just being able for people to be who they are at that time. And we've had young people come into our space that have not been able to process anything, headphones, anxiety, and we let them be. There's boundaries, there's always boundaries. And in that space, we always say there are three main rules. There is respect for self, and that's always first, respect for others, and respect for the property and the place that they're in. So really, it's driven by them and what they can do. And again, removing that expectation is really important.
Hmm. What, as you see the young people kind of come into the space, and Imagine is, as I said earlier, it's a registered charity. It's run by volunteers for the youth and the adolescents who come into the space. But how have you seen, if you could map the journey and the transformative power of love and connection, how does it look like? I mean, I know it's different for every person, but there must be a thread, a common thread that kind of runs through the experience for the young people who come into the space. How does love transform in that way?
And I think, again, it's just meeting them where they're at with kindness and love. So whoever they want to be that day, they come in. And it's quite a quick transformation. And it astounds me on numerous occasions And it's why I have my own space, because I have to go and cry just to process all of that. Because that emotion, just to see that change in young people, we've had young people come in that are so, it's a new space, it's a whole new environment. They already are dealing with so much in their lives, and they come into this new space that's promising to change their lives. Right? They're going to be this whole new person by coming in, because that's how it's sold along the way, to get them through that door by their parents, by their caregivers, by their schools. So they come in with this, oh gosh, they've already had all of these expectations put on them. But it's so gentle in that space. And I say that I provide it, but every one of our volunteers provide it. It's that little connection, that little smile, that enabling them to just explore the space in a safe environment. So if any young person's come in, headphones, balled up, I can't do this, I can't do this. And by the end of the session, and we're talking about a 2-hour session, they are smiling, laughing, they've built a connection. And that's not for everyone. There's some that take a bit longer. There's some that may not connect because the space is not going to be for everyone, and that's okay. Again, removing the expectation that we have to do something or we should be doing something means that people just can be who they are. And if it doesn't work for them, then that's okay. But thank you for giving it a go. But most of the time, it does. And again, it's in our language and the way that we treat them. We don't yell at them. We're not telling them they have to do something. Oh, I can't believe you're not doing that. And we do that. We go, oh, thanks for trying. Thanks for giving that a go. I really appreciate it. And that kind of kindness, that love, that the way that we speak, the action, because these sometimes words are just very hollow. So sometimes it's nice to have the action follow those words and back up that word, and that it's just a space. And so, you know, what do you want to do today? Oh, we want to rip pallets apart. Oh, great. Because so do I, because I'm feeling really frustrated. And so pulling this wood apart and banging the nails out and doing all of that is cathartic on all different levels, so on a number of levels. So it's having that space and using humor as well. Because if we're not so serious, then they can relax in that space a little bit as well, with respect. Never push those boundaries, although I try to push those boundaries of not being respectful, but it's always with respect and love, and it's just a bit of joy. That joy is so important. We forget it as adults. Childlike joy. The simple things, sitting on the stairs in the sun, just enjoying that sunlight coming in on you on a beautiful Melbourne day like today. Those little things that bring joy, it doesn't have to be a big thing, but those little things that bring joy is such a great thing. You don't see a 3-year-old worrying about what everyone else is thinking because they're sitting in the sun or they're making snow, like angels in the snow or in leaves or rolling down hills. They're not worried about that. And that's the piece that I think that we forget as we develop and get older, is that tapping into that childlike joy. And I think that's the piece that connects people.
Absolutely. I think joy, awe, wonder, amazement are such important states to tap into and to be able, and I feel that sometimes they pop into our lives, but we don't give them the attention or the time that they deserve. And yet, when something goes wrong or when there's something negative that's happened, we will focus on that. And, part of that's the wiring of the brain, right? We have our negativity bias and the brain will always kind of hone in on the negative to keep us safe. But tapping into that joy or that amazement is such a wonderful thing. We're living in really interesting times, and there's it's been the theme for quite a number of years now, where this polarization seems to be the default, and whilst we're looking for connection and we need connection more than ever, we are becoming more and more disconnected, as as society, as communities, as a society, as countries. How do you feel that this approach, or putting love into action and and starting to meet people where they are. How would you translate that into, for example, our society where we have, divides between people who see the world so differently, I guess, and can't come, to sit around a table and talk through things. What's the missing link, do you think, from your experience, to bring people together?
Look, if we all thought the same and we all acted the same, how vanilla and boring would the world be? Like, so just being open to the fact that we're not going to see eye to eye all the time. That's okay. It's okay to have a differing view. And your view and my view is not the right view, although I'll tell you that it is. But you really, it's not. It's not the only view in the world, and perspective is such a beautiful thing. Um, so I think if we hold that space and we remember that, and it's really hard because these things, these wonderful things that curate life for us, and I'm not saying everything has its place, technology has its place. We're doing a Zoom at the moment for a podcast, right? So technology has its place, but it's not our lives aren't curated, and it's not just black and white. There's a whole heap of grey. Let's change that grey into colour, and be okay with the fact that your view and my view aren't the same on everything. But ultimately, we're doing it because it's coming from a place of goodwill. It's coming from a place of love, and having that empathy to some people are really stressed. Cost of living, the news. If you're listening to the news, I don't watch the news. I don't turn the news on because it is just all the time that negative kind of thing. That doesn't mean that I don't know what's going on in the world. I'm not putting my blinkers on and going, oh, love, it's all going to be fantastic. Because that's not, I know that's not the reality. But if someone has a differing opinion to me, I don't go, oh, you're an idiot. I go, that's really interesting. I'd love to know more about why you think. It's that curiosity. I think you said it just before, being curious, holding that space and being curious, knowing that, and again, if we're meeting people where they're at, we know that it's because of fear. We know, and fear mongering has become a massive thing in community, in politics, across the board. This fear of all of these things. But we all come from the same thing, right? We all were born from love. We're all born from that beautiful space. And so if we just hold our space for each other and just be kind without that expectation, I think it's the expectations that let us down every single time. The woulds, the shoulds, what are they doing? Why aren't they doing the same as me? That expecting that everything is this, it's in this box. And we know that life is never in a box. In fact, the biggest growth is when you think outside of that box. So being compassionate, being understanding, having empathy, those things are important. Knowing that life here on earth can be a bit of a challenge. And so you never know what that person opposite is thinking, what that person behind a keyboard is going through, the pain that they're feeling. And by attacking them, it could be quite detrimental to their life, right? So they're obviously coming at it with some sort of pain. They're disrupting whatever they're trying to do. Whether you don't have to pay attention to it. If it's negative, you could just skim past it. You don't have to take every little piece of information and absorb it. These things called our brains are wonderful things. They're also the cause of a lot of our pain, but they are wonderful things, and they can be like a sieve. You can filter through the things that are of importance to you and the things that don't matter, and the things you can just let go. And I think that's important, to have that ability to distinguish those.
Mm. I often say, when I'm teaching mindfulness to uh, new people who haven't really had an experience of mindfulness, um, And I take them through, for example, the difference between empathy and compassion, and understanding what that is, and how compassion is putting empathy into action, not carrying it within you, but actually turning it into something that you can do to alleviate people's suffering. And the one thing that I always share is that in our common humanity, the one thing that is certain and shared amongst and between every single human being on this planet is that we will all go through suffering. And that's a universal experience. It's not unique to anyone, but that should also help us understand others better and to be able to bridge those divides by looking at that from that way. Um, you mentioned before that, one of the things that you do, you said, I keep doing, you spent some time going inside yourself, doing that work, doing that self-reflective piece. And you said that the work is, you keep doing the work. It doesn't just finish. Um, I guess I'd love to ask you how you maintain your own sense of authenticity and groundedness whilst you're leading a mission that really requires so much emotional energy, because it's a lot of work to be working with these adolescents and our young people who are suffering. So they're coming to you because they're already in a space of suffering. They're coming to you because they're disconnected, because they're disengaged, because they're coming from disadvantaged backgrounds or structures. How do you hold space for you within that to be able to show up in the way that you do?
Um, laugh. Laughter is always my number one thing. Cracking a joke, you know me. I'm not very serious as a person. But for me, it's a bit of a release as well, that laughter, because that, as you said, suffering happens. It really does. And it happens to everybody. But you can't appreciate the good stuff if you haven't experienced the suffering, right? It's part of our journey as in life. It's just life. It happens. So remembering that, and don't get me wrong, there are days where I'm not doing this anymore. I'm over it. I can't do it because it all gets too much. And I have to remember why. Why am I doing this? This is not about me. It never has been about me. It will never be about me. I'm merely just the conduit to help people connect. That is it. And so remembering that all the time is really important. And then laughing about it too, because, why be serious? Life is way too short.
So, what do you do? I mean, if you're finding yourself needing to explore something or be more reflective around something, perhaps something hasn't gone your way or in the way that you had imagined, or within Imagine, or even with other things that you're working on. What are some of your tips, I guess? Because I think it's really useful for our listeners to hear what other people are doing on the daily, right? Or on the weekly, or whatever it may be. What do you do to kind of help Jayne stay grounded and focused?
So first I start with waking up at 3 o'clock every morning going, oh my gosh, what's happening? And I'm like, oh, get over yourself. And then I sit with it. Sitting with it is so important because it's not always the right now. And I'm a very impatient person. And so everything has to be done yesterday. Like, come on, like why hasn't Imagine got space all around the world? Just because the board says we have to start in Eltham, why haven't we got global domination yet? Why? But it's a movement, and it happens at the time that it's supposed to happen. And so sitting with it for a little while and just remembering why, draw, craft. It's no coincidence that what we do at Imagine and what I do in my coaching sessions is bring craft into that. Not because I want you to be all artists and we have to be amazing. Trust me, if you saw me draw, you'd go, why the hell is she teaching that? Because I can't, right? But that creativity, tapping into different areas of the brain that we don't necessarily activate because we are so in our heads and our jobs don't allow for it and our lives don't allow for it. And we're busy, especially as mums, partners, daughters. We're in that sandwich kind of generation where we're looking after our elderly parents as they age. We're raising families. We're trying to be we're building careers, we're trying to be the everything to everyone, I think it's really important to stop, to just stop. And the way that I do that is creating stuff. So it could be creating a new program, it could be creating something physical, collaging, doing something, colouring in, doing Lego. Again, all the things, playing games on my phone sometimes, but whatever that looks like, to just be. To just be in that moment and remember my why. My why comes after that stillness. Stillness is really important. And meditating for me can be that. It doesn't need to be my whole close my eyes and kind of thing, because sometimes my brain will go, oh, look at that shiny object over there, and look at that over there, and I get distracted and thoughts come in, and, I'm not so good at turning off those thoughts. But I am when I'm creating. I am when I look around and connecting, going out, for coffee or dinner with a friend. Doing those kind of things is really important to me, because that connection, that stopping, that not on the go all the time, having to be something and just sitting is important.
I love that. The stillness, the being, the curiosity. So my next question that comes from that is, when do your best ideas come to you?
3 o'clock in the morning. There's not even a doubt in my mind. So I was never going to do this coaching piece, because where am I going to have time, right? That lovely constraint of time. I was never going to do it. And then I dreamt about it, and it came to me, and it was so beautiful. I went, okay, all right, I hear you, I'll do it. And it's beautiful. The space is beautiful when I'm working with these wonderful women. But again, it came at 3 o'clock in the morning. I literally could sit there and write something at 3 o'clock in the morning as well. So that's where my best, but it's after being still. I've been asleep, right? My body is recovering, whatever that looks like. Yeah, I might get up at 3, but I've rested, and that stillness is really important.
So what's emerging from the future for Jayne Clarke? When you're in stillness, when you have those moments at 3 a.m., what can you sense that's coming, not just for you, but for the betterment of humanity? Because the work that you're doing is work that is building a better community, a better society, a better space for humanity, showcasing and, I guess, really embodying that love and kindness and connection can heal the world. What's emerging for Jayne Clarke?
I try not to think too far in the future, because I believe that there's a plan, and it will all come through when it needs to. But continuing to hold the space for those young people, continuing to hold the space for my coaching team, continuing to hold the space for me as well. Like, we talk about oxygen masks. You've got to make sure yours, you don't go on a plane and they go, hey, put everyone else's on and then put your oxygen mask on. They tell you need to fit yours first. So making sure that I'm still doing things for me. Sharing this message is really important in whatever way, shape, or form that takes. But getting out there and sharing the message, in bringing people along for that journey. And not everybody that listens to me or has the privilege of listening to me, but not everybody who listens to me is going to take in what I need, because they're all at a different stage of their journey. But if we can tap into a few people along the way, and they can hear the story, and they can get out of their own heads and change the world in their way as well, with love, kindness, and compassion, then love is the antidote, isn't it? It really is. Love, connection is the antidote. There is no other way, as far as I'm concerned. So that's the future for me.
Well, following on from that, that's Jayne's future. I mean, what gives you hope right now for, I guess, humanity's capacity to reconnect? Are you seeing glimmers of change? Are you seeing that people are awakening to the fact that this actually isn't sustainable anymore? I mean, I ask people all the time, are you sick of your suffering yet?
Yeah,
Do you need
I
more
know.
suffering, or are you ready to step away from it, right? Like at what point do you say, I've had enough of this suffering now. I'm ready to do something else. What gives you hope right now for humanity?
I think you used a really good word just then. And I know people go, oh, whatever, but glimmer. The glimmers. It's we're in really dark times. Like if you look at the state of the world, there are dark times. But humanity as a whole wants to change. They want to do good. It's why they were protesting in their hordes about the injustices against humanity. It's why people are there. They're there. They want to make a difference, and we just need to provide them with that avenue. And they can do that in small ways. They can do that by giving their time. And I see that at Imagine. We've got 74 volunteers on the books, and they're as young as 8 years old, and they're as old as 89 years old. And watching those connections come through just with the volunteers, and then the way they connect with the young people that enter into that space. Whenever you're having a bad day, you just need to watch that because it is beautiful. And that for me is the hope that connection is the way to go forward because I see it on a daily basis.
I love that. So if Imagine could achieve a one bold, sweeping change in the next decade, what would it be?
That everybody has a place and purpose. You would not be on this earth if you did not have purpose. And so realizing what that purpose is a beautiful thing. And it doesn't have to be big. It can get up in the morning as purpose. So, but you are here for a reason. And so tap into that. And if Imagine can help people realize their purpose in a kind, loving way, then that's the best thing that could happen.
If our listeners are interested in supporting Imagine, what can they do to get involved? I mean, I know, the charity is based in Melbourne, Australia. So physically you'd have to be in the vicinity of the charity to be able to support. But for our listeners who are overseas and listeners who are in different states, how can they support the charity?
Live what we do. Just live it. Just if you want to open an Imagine space, I'll be happy to help you open it too. Like, let's take over the world. Um, because all we're doing at Imagine is creating connection, right? We use the recycling, the upcycling as a mechanism for that connection, but it's all about that. So you can, we do this on limited funding. We sell sausages at Bunnings to be able to pay our rent. We do those kind of things. Like we do it on, but it doesn't matter. So you can help us financially. You can spread the word and do things out of love and kindness. Connect with your neighbours. Look at those kids that are not connecting well and see what you can do to help them. Get in touch with us. Talk about how we can partner, how we can do things, that we can take this movement and take it not just in Eltham, Victoria, but around the world. I'd be more than happy to. I think we'd all be, the whole group of volunteers in Imagine would love to see that growth and that connection and that movement grow even further than our physical premises.
Hmm. So for our listeners, if you're interested in perhaps starting an Imagine movement in your space, I guess Jayne is inviting you to connect with her to learn more about how that could happen. But Jayne, before we move to some final closing reflections, I just need to ask the name Imagine Re-Evolution, and I'm sure it's a question that our listeners will have. Where did it come from? What's the
Okay,
inspiration for the name?
it came from a meditation and it came from the song Imagine by John Lennon. Like, how could it not? If you listen to every lyric in that song, it is exactly what we're imagining and what we've been talking about on this podcast today. It
Mm.
just embodies all of those teachings. And then revolution was the word that came in through the meditation. And in fact, we were both singing it and doing that, and it was lovely independently. But Imagine revolution was taken. But re-evolution, how powerful is that? To start again with all of the learnings that we have over the generations, to be able to wipe that slate clean and take those learnings with love, kindness, and compassion forward and build this beautiful connection throughout the world. That's all I can say is how beautiful would that be?
I guess that actually leads beautifully into my invitation for you to share a closing reflection on how people who are listening to us can start to bring more love and connection into their daily lives. A lot of people are, working in corporate environments that perhaps haven't started to really embody the research and the findings showing us how important loving kindness and compassion and purpose and values are to, the environments that we live in and work and play in for our own well-being and mental health and mental fitness. So, if you're a listener and you're stuck in an environment that you feel is a little bit outside of the scope of what we've been talking about today, how can you show up? What are your tips, Jayne, for people to show up and bring more love and connection into their worlds?
And we've all been there, right? We've all been in those corporate environments. But you can still be present and be doing something. Find something that you love. It doesn't, work is great. It's amazing. It pays the bills. And, we talk about money being energy. You still need it. It's a wonderful thing. What is it that lights you up? Why do you turn up to work every day? Is it the person that you sit next to that you laugh with? Is it the one aspect of the job that really lights you up and you want to keep doing that? Treat people with kindness. If you're a leader, be kind to the people that are reporting to you. Play to their strengths. Create an environment where people thrive. It's such an important thing to do. There's plenty of readings. You don't have to do courses and multiple bits. I mean, you can come and see me, but you don't have to do all the courses because it's in you. Your gut will tell you what's right and wrong. Don't always lead from your head. Lead from your heart. Lead from your gut. It'll teach you what you need to know, and just show compassion to the people around you. And if it's not the space for you, have the courage to acknowledge that and work towards building a better future for yourself. And it takes courage, and it's scary. And we've all been there and done that. But again, we've spoken about the suffering, and without it, you cannot flourish. And so take that, take the lessons with kindness and love and say, thank you for that experience. What's my next step?
Love that. I mean, courage and that bravery to be triggered into action and, be true to yourself and be true to your values. We know purpose is so important, right? And we're not talking about purpose as a burden or a struggle or, this one thing that you have to find. We're just talking about being aligned with what brings you joy, with what makes you feel satisfied, where you can be of service, how you can support others or help others or make a difference, or even just have an impact in the work that you're putting out there every day, or the coffee that you're making, or the meal that you're cooking. I mean, going to a restaurant to eat is such a privilege, right? And you can tell when a meal has been brought to you and it's been made with love. It tastes differently,
Yeah.
and I've heard
It
people
also
say
tastes
that they
different if
can
you're not having
tell
to. Yeah,
to
sorry.
cook
It
it,
also tastes
right?
different
But
if you don't have to
yeah.
cook it.
But I've heard people say to me that they have noticed a difference in their favorite meal at their favorite restaurant when it's a different chef that's cooking it, right? So it
Yeah.
just goes to show how that energy of love and kindness can feed into whatever it is that you're doing. So I absolutely love that. But, I just want to close. I mean, Jayne is a very modest person, but she has won a myriad of awards for the work that she's been doing, and recognition within Australia for the work that she is doing with our young people, and how she's building a sense of community and strengthening our binds as a society. And I think that people, you should be proud of that, and not from an egoic sense, but from the fact that the work that you are doing is having an impact every single day, and people are seeing it and organizations are recognizing it, and it's so valuable. And if you'd like to connect with Jayne, I will have all of her details available under the podcast links and in all the platforms where you might be listening to us today, whether it's Apple or Spotify or iTunes or whatever it is. But Jayne has this incredible ability to connect, and to connect authentically, and to build sustainable and long lasting relationships for impact. So I invite you to connect with Jayne, even if it's just a LinkedIn, hey, I heard the podcast and it was amazing to hear your story. But Jayne, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It is truly an honor to be your friend and to join you in parts of your journey, and to lend support where I can. But you're an inspiration, and the work that you do has great impact, and it means a lot. And just to be able to even listen to you today, to being so authentic and so vulnerable, and just you, is just so refreshing. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. And thank you for the privilege of the friendship, the space, and your guidance as well. So thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Jayne.